This week on Whiskey Movie Club, does Dr. Sleep live up to the legacy of The Shining? We're going to drink some bourbon and talk about it. And if you got that joke, you're in the right place. All right, so we're talking Dr. Sleep, which we all saw last night and today.
I saw today.
We're drinking Jack Daniels, and this is probably the cheapest whiskey we've ever had on the show. This whole thing was less than $30 for 1.75 liters
That's
of
value.
straight Tennessee sour mash whiskey.
I believe that's called a farva of whiskey.
I don't want a large farva. I want a goddamn liter of cola.
Fun fact, first date I ever went on, I took the lady to see that.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, we didn't last long. So I did not.
Approximately an hour and a half.
No,
or-
her and I remained friends afterwards
Okay.
for a very long time.
When you include the fact that there's a sequel, the Super Troopers series has
Franchise?
lasted longer than that relationship.
The theatrical run lasted longer than that relationship. It's one of those things to where you look at me now and you're like, God damn, Jason, you're so good looking and cool. That
we
wasn't
do
the case.
think that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, and so in high school that
you're
wasn't
in
the
here.
case, and this lady may have been well out of my league, and it just took her a little longer to notice.
Aww. Took her too long to notice she was out of my
They're
league.
there.
That's
No
the
cry.
most pathetic thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, stick around, I'll tell you some more stories.
Oh boy.
So, Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep. Okay, I just want to clarify something because I know people are already writing all sorts of horrible messages.
Nah, they stopped watching.
They probably did. But I did refer to this as bourbon, and while Jack Daniels does, in many ways, technically meet the standards of bourbon, it's Tennessee whiskey. We called it bourbon in the intro because of a...
The bit in it's a blooper. I don't know.
Is it an air?
I'm not
I mean,
sure.
Cooper doesn't make airs like that.
Either way, I feel like there was a props guy that was like, just use this.
Just use the Jack Daniels because Jack Torrance orders a bourbon at the Overlook and he clears what is barely... It's not even trying to hide it. You see the Jack Daniels.
The label faces the
Or
camera.
was Kubrick messing with your head?
You set 'em up and I'll knock 'em back, Lloyd. One by one. White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden.
Could be. But then again, they revisit in Dr. Sleep and he orders a
Yeah.
Jack Daniels. It was his dad's favorite drink. And so we're drinking Jack Daniels, and this 1.75 liters of Tennessee whiskey costs cheaper than most bourbons we have on the show. So we...
Tastes like college.
Okay, I've actually... This sounds weird because this is by far like the most popular American whiskey, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's... I don't think there's anything that... I mean, I'd have to look it up, but I imagine more gallons of this or barrels of this are sold than any other whiskey in this country.
I wouldn't argue with you on
So it's super cheap. So it's weird that we're going to be doing a tasting thing, but I've never actually had Jack Daniels straight up.
How is it?
Interesting.
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I always have it as a Jack and Coke because Jack and Coke is... despite-
That's what the rest of us are.
Yeah, you guys have a Lemmy, but which is a perfect drink. It's a... I fucking love
It
a
goes
Jack-
with everything.
Yeah, and you can be at any divey bar and they have it.
You can drink a Coke in front of your parents and be like, yeah, it's just a Coke.
So actually, how is Jack Daniels straight up?
Only one of us will know.
Survey says.
That was a way too big a...
Took way more than you need to do.
Normally I do a little dainty like...
Yeah, so it's a cautionary tale.
So in Jason terms, that whiskey tastes like...
This whiskey tastes somewhere between bourbon and gasoline.
Yep, college.
Yep.
Definitely
But I mean
college.
gasoline in the best kind of like huffing gas at the gas station kind of way.
What?
I've never done it.
Is that that's the best? That's the pinnacle of gasoline?
Pumping gas at the,
At the
classy
gas
gas station.
station.
You couldn't even take it home. You had to do it at the gas station.
Behind the gas station, just...
I just
You know that
assumed it was
motion way
straight
too
at the
well.
pump.
My God. So actually, I think I took too big of a sip to actually have... I think I was overpowered by the...
Sure.
The fumes.
The gas.
It's actually not bad.
Jack Daniels.
Not bad. Straight up.
It's kind of
not bad.
sour, but it's tasty for being $28 for 1.75 liters. That's 2 large Farvas, actually, almost.
That is.
2 large Farvas of whiskey for cheaper than...
Just a farva.
Yeah, a liter of cola.
A liter of cola is just a farva.
And a liter of
Right.
cola. Do we
This
have
is-
a liter of cola?
This is
Just a
1.75 liters of
Yes,
whiskey.
so
it's
1.75 farvas.
Right, so almost 2 Farvas.
Yeah.
Back on track. Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep.
None of us have talked about it at all yet. I think this is, for me, one of the most anticipated films of the last 6 months. I mean, it's the sequel to arguably the greatest horror movie ever made by one of the greatest directors who ever lived. The Shining pops up on virtually everyone's top 50 movie lists. It's a near perfect horror movie. By some, other people think it's kind of boring. We all saw it last night and today. Before we jump into spoilers, let's just talk about whether it lives up to... No, that's not fair. We can't say if it lives up to The Shining's legacy because The Shining has become so iconic and legendary in the past, like, 35
big
years.
shoes to
I've
fill.
known
And big
people
shoes to-
who have taken specific vacations to go to the hotel that the Overlook Hotel
Stanley,
is
right?
based off of. Yeah.
Yep.
So one of my favorite bands, sidetrack here, Murder by Death, does 2 shows at New Year's at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, and I've always wanted to go. And at the end, they always take a group picture with the band in front of everyone. Everyone's in bow ties because it's
The
formal
photo
event.
at the
Yeah,
Makes sense.
even
Nice.
though they're like alt rock, alt country punk, I've always wanted to go. No, they're amazing.
That's a combo.
Okay, so I actually
It's
use
a
their
good band.
song a lot of the time in the intro. They sing a lot about whiskey.
Nice.
Yeah, no, they're a good band. They're a really good band. So, real quick, without spoilers, Travis, what did you think of Dr. Sleep?
Overall, I liked it. Enjoyed my time seeing it. It's a little long, but it didn't feel long. Like, it didn't feel like it
It's
dragged
almost like,
on.
what,
it.
2.5
2.5
hours?
hours, and it didn't feel like it dragged on at any point. That being said, I felt like I was going in. Everyone was asking me, like, "Oh, is this movie going to be scary? Is this movie scary?" And I never really got that haunting feeling that I did watching Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining.
Well, it's kind of hard because The Shining exists really in one location.
Yeah.
It's super slow and it's single objective. Whereas this one is much more sprawling. It's much more Stephen King-esque in its scope. And it's the big baddies aren't the ghosts. They're
Yeah.
a murder cult, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
Without
they're,
getting into too
they're-
much.
They have a name, the knot.
The knots
the true
with a
knots.
K.
Yeah, yeah, and then they it's a lot of good world building. It expands kind of a lot on it. I haven't read the books at all, so I'm not entirely sure how much of that is played into in the books, but it was interesting to see kind of all this other stuff that's going on and not just a focused group of just the Danny.
Did you
and
like
his
it,
family.
though?
I did. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
I just don't think I found it very frightening.
That's fair. But you're also 30-something years old.
This is true.
Jason.
I'm going to agree with Travis. Overall, I liked it. I went into it not knowing much about the sequel, the book, or what to expect going into it. So I kind of liked that everything was kind of fresh to me and new and different. I'm like, oh, what's going to happen next? Or who are these guys? Or what's, I was actually really into this movie watching it last night.
It felt really unpredictable.
There's a few things. There's a few things I put together, like, oh, this is going to happen, or this is
Sure.
But going into it, not knowing the overall arc of the story was fun. So I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it was a fair continuation of.
You don't feel
the
like it
story.
flopped. It fell right on its face.
I don't think so.
I mean,
no.
because following The Shining is ridiculously ambitious.
Definitely, and and part of that, I was like, oh, this has such big shoes to fill that. Can it do it?
Right.
Can it? I kind of went in with that attitude. It's like,
But Mike Flanagan, director who did the Hill House, Haunted Hill House,
yeah.
a bunch of other great haunted.
He did a lot of
films.
horror stuff,
He's
yeah.
fantastic.
I overall enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I'm interested to hear what you thought about the camera work in it. I thought there was a lot of really neat camera angles, and
yeah.
then sometimes it was just like, it seems like they're using a unique camera angle just for the sake of being like, this isn't often shot this perspective.
I didn't actually feel like that at all. I felt like one of the things, and then again, I don't want to get into spoilers just yet, but the movie is paced really well, especially for being, I think, 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And as it kind of weaves through the different, again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but in the parts that are more reminiscent of The Shining, you get those weird, because The Shining was one of the first movies to use the Steadicam, right?
Yeah, they do
and
the
so
tracking.
The
of
tracking is near
the
perfect
big wheel and
because
stuff.
The Shining, they float almost like a spirit, right?
Right.
And they captured that so fucking well.
And with some of the shots, I really liked when they were talking when they were on the the Rose the Hat, her stuff was right in here, really tight, right in her face, and you could see her eyes and how serious she was when she was talking to whoever she was talking to at the time. And there was a few shots like that really stood out to me when they're mild spoiler, when they're converting one of the girls that they caught, and she like lays her head in her lap, and her shot's like upside down and the other shot's upside right,
and then
like,
one of them they go completely 90.
Yeah,
and it doesn't call attention to itself.
No,
in the
and
way
it really
you'd
helps
expect.
tell the story.
I was really paying attention to the photography in this because The Shining, I mean, it's not one of my favorite movies, but it is admittedly a masterclass in cinematography.
Oh, for sure.
And I think this movie did it so well. I mean, it's a little bit less grandiose and less. I mean, Kubrick films are famous for being perfect. Like, you know, he's a was a perfectionist. This was, I guess, I hesitate to use the word sloppy.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it sloppy, but it was not a Kubrick.
It wasn't. That being said, it was probably the best shot horror movie, at least this year, probably in the last several years.
I wouldn't argue that.
It's not going to win an Academy Award, especially after 1917 comes out in a couple weeks and all these other fantastic movies. But it was really good.
I enjoy. I don't have any complaint that I have about this film. It's going to be so small and not.
Yeah, and my complaints I can't even talk about until we get into spoilers.
Right.
Like, my top level is, fucking hell, this was a good movie. Like, seriously.
So that's how you feel about the movie?
Fucking hell, it was a good movie.
Okay.
Yes, please put that
that in the
across.
box.
Fucking hell, not fucking hell.
You can put it on the Blu-ray cover.
Yes. No, it was really
It's the
good.
movie club right underneath it.
It wasn't, despite it being really long, it never felt slow.
No.
Not in the way that The Shining did.
Like The Shining in 1980, the pacings of the films back then were slow. Anyway.
This is true, but Kubrick does take his time with
He
things,
does.
and that was one of the things The Shining did, was the slow build, the slow suspense. And this movie has such big scope and so much going on. If they took that kind of pace, in the movie would be Gone with the Wind length.
Like Danny on the tricycle.
Yes.
In the first one is like so well done, like camera wise, cinematography wise, but it's a
Sound-wise.
long shot
You follow him.
for a hot, like all the way around, and it's like the sound and everything is like really amazing, which you wouldn't think if you just tell someone, yeah, this kid's like riding his tricycle and he goes on the hardwood to the carpet to the hardwood to the carpet. That sounds boring, but it was made in such a way that actually did make it captivating for the long period of time it was on.
And I
Absolutely.
like that, like, it's a little bit grating on your brain a little bit, where you're like, it's still going on, and he's going from the carpet to the hardwood, and the sound, and the carpet to the hardwood, and it's the little bit of that, like, you're feeling like you're going a little bit crazy, and it's just like a little bit of a peek into like, what's going on there in The Shining. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to talk about some of the more some of the details about this movie, and I want to jump into spoilers. But before we do, let's just talk about the performances.
I don't get to talk about if I like.
Oh, I am so Elena.
Yeah.
I am so. Please accept my sincerest apologies.
It's gonna fade into the background.
Elena,
Yes,
please. What did you think of Dr. Sleep?
if you're gonna beg.
I am begging. I'm anxious.
I do not think it is a horror movie. I would not classify it as a horror movie.
What would you classify
I
it
think
as?
outside of the exception of one scene that we'll talk about when we get to spoilers, it was not a horror movie at all. I've seen it described as two things that I kind of think is a mesh between. I've seen one as dark fantasy, which
Okay.
I agree with,
Oh,
and
100%.
another one is almost like a superhero film.
That's what I felt.
Those are the two I'm seeing it compared to, and I think it's way more like that than a horror movie.
So you think it's like closer to
Yeah.
like Unbreakable?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
There were multiple times, I think I wrote in my notes, this just feels like superheroes.
And I feel like at a certain point, to me, I was sitting in the movie, and I had told you guys before that I do not do horror movies. It's not like my thing. And I was worried about it. It did not feel like a horror movie at the time. Like I said, outside of one scene that we'll get to in spoilers because I have some thoughts on. But it felt like it turned into a revenge film. It was kind of like, to me, like
Okay.
akin to Psycho, where the first half of it, I kind of felt like, okay, we're getting into a horror movie, and then it flipped into and Psycho's more like a getaway movie in the beginning, and it turns into a horror movie. It's
about-
kind of the reverse of that for me.
About
Like it
set
didn't feel
halfway through the second act, it when they're in the woods. Right after
Yes.
that, the movie kind of turns
Yes.
to. I don't know if I'd call it a revenge film, but it certainly has those moments. Yes, yeah. I don't disagree though. I mean, it certainly has those superhero elements. It's 100% a dark fantasy movie.
It reminded me of a really long episode of Supernatural.
So I want to talk about performances before we jump into spoilers.
Yeah.
Everyone was amazing. Ewan McGregor is fantastic in everything, including, second trilogy of Star Wars.
Even episode 1.
Yes.
He tried. That
He
was
did try. He did great.
He was the best
that
part
was
of
the
the
important
movies, really.
part.
But,
He
like,
tried.
Even the little girl was amazing. One of the things I particularly liked is a lot of characters come back from The Shining, right? And they recast everyone because obviously you can't have Shelley Duvall, right?
She's never coming back to do that franchise ever again.
No, not after the way Kubrick treated her. And plus, that was shot in 1979 and it released in 80, right?
Yeah.
I got that Marvel de-aging magic.
Right.
Well,
I'm glad they didn't do that.
No.
I'm really glad they didn't
But
do
what
that.
I liked is they cast people who were able to project the essence of those characters without doing caricatures of them. Like the mom was...
It looks like people dressed up as those characters for Halloween really well.
And
Like, if you saw
That's
those
a
people in the
good
party,
cosplay.
you'd be like, you nailed it.
So I hated that in the beginning. I was like, this takes me right out of it. I hate it. I don't like it. I could get past, them recasting the kid. I could get past them recasting Shelley Duvall, right?
Yeah.
Shelley Duvall. When we got to Jack Nicholson, I was like, nope. This is like Walmart grade Jack Nicholson. Like, I just can't
But he
take it.
captured the essence so well of Jack Torrance.
But
It pulled me out of it,
It pulled
too.
me out. But I will say, the way I made myself accept it is by thinking his parents have been dead for a really long time. He barely remembers his dad. That is how a child would probably remember their long dead
This is true.
parents.
But what would the alternative be to find someone who did a Jack Nicholson impersonation?
Just get Jack Nicholson. We've got the technology.
I think that
He
would've
is
been-
that character.
But so
Like, I understand
I
it,
almost took
but
it
he's
as-
Jack
had
freaking Nicholson.
had they done that, I guarantee right now we'd be talking about how they fucked up the de-aging.
You
and
would.
how it was-
Sure.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, you would for
You
sure.
would.
I would.
That gets you particularly.
Grand Moff
We
Tarkin
literally-
all over
Rarely
again.
done
We literally
well.
said in Terminator, we were like, oh yeah, it was not that bad. Like,
Okay,
Arnold
there's a-
Schwarzenegger
That
was
was a
not that
20-second
bad.
scene, not a...
Right, and
not
there's
a...
the most powerful scene in the movie, in my opinion, is at the. Fuck, we're getting into spoilers. Just you know what?
We're at the
real quick,
spoilers.
Do you think people need to see it?
Yeah, I think it's worth your time.
Yeah, I fucking loved it. I think I'm legit gonna go see it again in the next week. I can't stop thinking about this movie. I really enjoyed it. The performances, the directing, the photography, the soundtrack, the sound design, everything about it was amazing, and I fucking loved it.
I'm glad you guys liked it because I was sitting at work today going, I really liked that. I liked it. I hope everybody else likes it because I don't want to be the only guy to like it. So I'm glad that you guys like it.
We do live in a day and age where we're like, I like that. Is it okay to like that?
Yeah,
Like,
there was a little bit of that.
Am I going to
part,
get on the internet
but-
later and everyone's like, this movie was garbage, and
Dr.
I'm going to
Sleep
be
is
like,
canceled.
oh no.
Like, wouldn't it be bad if, say, we were seeing Charlie's Angels next week and one of us liked it?
No.
That would be kind of embarrassing.
This is America. We're allowed to like what we want.
You get fired from the show.
I would say the only reason people shouldn't see this movie is if it's very vague spoiler, if you cannot take any sort of violence
Well,
against
that actually
children.
does bring a good point because we haven't talked about this yet.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinarily dark movie.
Yeah.
Children die, and I
Yeah.
use the plural.
Yeah.
One of them gets tortured to death.
Yeah.
It has very dark. I mean, I would not take a child to see this movie.
No.
The themes are dark. I mean, redemption is the biggest theme.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor. I don't think this is any spoiler. He's an alcoholic going into it, and it's about his redemption. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's even taking children out of the fact of don't bring a child to this movie. I know tons of parents, my mom, my sister, my sister-in-law, tons of friends who do have kids who say to me, I cannot watch things where kids get hurt.
Oh,
I
right.
can't do it.
Sure.
I can't do it anymore. So
Sure.
now when people ask me, like, should I see this movie? I'm like, can you handle any sort of violence against children? If not, either go see it and leave the theater at a certain point
Yeah.
and come back, or don't see it.
I also just have a hard time anytime someone asks me that, where like I had someone ask me today, they're like, oh, could I bring a 15-year-old to this movie? And I hadn't seen it yet. And I said, I don't know. Would you let a 15-year-old watch the original? Like, that's the line you
That's a
have to
weird
draw.
metric.
Like,
And, like The Shining, the original one, was great at building tension, but like you never actually know if the ghosts in there can do harm.
right. But at the same
Whereas-
time, I had no, like,
totally.
like I had nothing
Yeah.
to go off of other than it's a sequel to
in-
that movie.
But now that you've seen it, would you? what would you
Again,
say?
I don't know. Like, that kind of
Depends
depends
on
on
the
like how
kid,
how
yeah.
your kid like handles
people
things
die in this,
and
and
how
they're
you
tortured.
want your kid. to
And
look
like
at.
the things that are coming after people
They're
can
terrifying.
legit, like in The Shining, it's just a crazy dad. We don't know if the ghosts are real or if they can.
Sure, but there's
In
like
the movie,
It's a hotel using the crazy dad as
Yeah.
a facade.
right?
but-
But
Right,
it's
right.
a movie. There's a lot up in the air.
but the imagery in the movie, like you've got a lot of people say like, oh man, I saw that the first Shining when I was a young teenager, and the woman in the bathtub messed me up. Like I had nightmares, and you're like,
couldn't
yeah, I
shower
get
alone.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like that's a weird like crazy image to
Yeah.
see. Like for a lot of people, it was like, and when you're an adult, you're looking back at it. There's like the guy in the bear costume, like going
Doing
down
fellatio,
somewhere.
yeah.
It's
What
like
is
what is
that?
happening? And it's such a brief, like whatever. When you're a kid and you just like. It's a weird image for a split second that it's just a hard time like to process.
What kind of reminds me of the bad animatronics at the old Chuck E. Cheese.
It's hard to process.
Or what
No,
was
it's the
the
food.
bear
Oh.
sing
The
along
food's
at
hard to
Disneyland back in the day in Critter Country?
The Country Bear
the
Jamboree.
Country Bear Jamboree at the Overlook Hotel.
You guys and your Chuck E.
Yikes.
Cheeses.
Wait, you're from North Carolina. Do you guys not have those out there?
We do, but where I grew up, we had a thing called Celebration Station.
Did you have animatronics?
I was gonna
that
say
would just
Lester's
We did.
Possum
pretend to
Park.
play instruments, but it would always be like.
We did. They
Like, it would
they
never
lived
function,
in garbage garbage cans,
Wait a
So
minute.
you had like Oscar the Grouch.
but they couldn't call them that.
So it was you had like Sesame Street knockoff.
They're, if I remember.
We're gonna
correctly.
unpack that after the show
Yeah.
for sure.
We're gonna drink some more Jack Daniels and talk about your upbringing in North Carolina.
So many trash cans.
All right, so I want to jump into spoilers. I really think you need to see this movie. I think you need to see it in on the big theater if you haven't already, just because of the photography and the sound. We saw it in one of the nicer theaters.
Okay.
With the really
XD.
the XD with the really great sound, the big screen, and I don't regret paying the extra money because, especially the score, they use the music from the was it the Dies Irae from the first movie. They use it again in this, plus a whole bunch more, and it's just I think you need that big screen experience. Honestly, I can't encourage this movie enough. I loved it. It's terrifying, and I can't wait to see it again. That being said, let's jump into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, don't keep watching because it's going to ruin the experience for you.
Absolutely.
All right, so spoilers. What was the biggest shocker for you?
Gee, I wonder what it ever could be. Justin
Ian McGregor's
just
awesome beard.
Jacob Tremblay's performance
Yes.
Yeah.
wrecked me. Like legitimately wrecked me as a human being. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was sick to my stomach. I was emotional. I was just
We'll clarify, who is this?
Jacob Tremblay, who is
baseball
also the baseball
Number
boy.
9.
Number
19,
19,
which is the
He's
the
the kid
Buffy
from-
kind of. I don't know if it was done on purpose,
Oh.
but there is an episode in Buffy the Vampire Slayer where there is a young baseball player who gets beaten and goes into a coma, and his coach was the one. Spoiler alert! It came out in '97. You guys know that. That his
Well, you
baseball
did give a
coach.
shit last week about spoiling Terminator 1.
Why do you think I've been so quiet this time? But his baseball coach had gotten mad at him and like beat him, and that's why he ended up in this coma. But his number was number 19, and
Oh.
throughout the episode they called him Lucky Number 19 or Lucky 19. So the
Interesting.
moment Jacob Tremblay showed up in a 19, I was like, that kid gonna die.
Now, mind you, that scene, I guess for me, was a little bit watered down because I spent the whole time going, where have I seen this kid before?
Oh, right, because he was in
Good
He's in-
Boys.
And the room.
Yeah, and it took me until pretty much the end of the scene that I was like, Good Boys. That came out earlier this summer.
Horrible.
I
I don't
read-
shy away.
Yeah, no.
No.
I
It-
read on IMDb after I saw the movie
Yeah.
that after that, were you going to go
Yeah,
with
no,
this?
you
Go
go.
ahead.
No,
No.
you go ahead.
That like after the first take, he was in it, and like after the first take, like he got up, gave his dad a high five, and when he got a snack, and like the other actors in the scene were like shaking.
Yeah.
Like he was like so good, and he just like nailed the scene and,
Yeah.
and fucked up the adults, and then
Yeah.
went and go get a snack.
The actress who played Rose, right?
Yeah.
She did an interview. She talked about
Rose the
that.
Hat?
She said the first time that Jacob Tremblay did the performance, she started crying because it was so realistic, and like they all started stuttering over their lines, and he's covered in blood. He just pops up, high fives his dad, and goes to get a snack, and I'm like, what the fuck?
But speaking of
That's
which,
cool.
Rose the Hat was amazing.
You know,
My God.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
she
it
was
was
pretty
hard.
fantastic. Her little "well, hello there" catchphrase, like I got
Well,
tired of it
hello
after a
there.
while. I did.
Hello there.
But she was, I mean, she was so menacing.
I enjoyed that.
God, I love the murder cult.
I did too.
True not, yes.
Liked the concept of them. I liked all the characters. I hated how they all had fun nicknames.
Oh, Crow and Snakebite.
Yeah, Crow Daddy and Snakebite Sally or
Andy.
whatever her name.
But that's
Andy,
kind of very
yeah.
Stephen King-y, though, isn't
It's
it?
Yeah.
very Stephen King-y, and that's the side of Stephen King stuff that I go, this sort of takes me out of everything else that's going on.
This
It's these
movie
weird
felt
little like
very. I've
cheeky.
never read a Stephen King book except The Green Mile back when I was like in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
But just based on seeing most Stephen King movies, this felt very Stephen King-y.
Mm-hmm.
But they did a lot of things that I imagine were in the book in this movie, but they did them surprisingly well, especially when Rose the Hat is flying
yes.
over the
yeah.
cities.
The astral
Yes.
Like
projection.
I've seen people do something similar to that dozens of times in movies, and it never works. And something about what Mike Flanagan did this time, it was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It was so good.
I will say that scene for me, I was in it,
Yeah.
and then when she goes to touchdown, they hit the musical score
Yeah.
with the and I was like, all she did was land on the street, and you just see her and
Like
like
when you see the close-up of her feet.
yeah,
Oh,
her
it's like,
foot is like
dong.
dong, and then she's like in running pants and a sweatshirt. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
she's
not
in,
as
like, straight, like, yoga
menacing
pants.
as I
She's like
want
in
it to
yoga
be.
pants.
She's like,
Like-
I'm just in my comfy wear. I'm gonna go find
like
this
she's
little
speed
girl.
walking down
Yeah, and I was
the
like,
neighborhood.
weird,
That scene
weird.
was so good
Yeah,
in the
but-
room.
Yeah, the scene in the
Yeah, it was
room was
great.
fantastic,
Yeah.
but just that little in between like this beautiful imagery of her flying through like the sky and all the stars and like going down through the clouds and into the city, and then this weird musical note of like menacing moment, and I was like, no, she's just walking in the street now. Nothing
yoga
weird's
pants.
happening yet.
It's like after Inception came out and everybody started using the Inception noise.
Right.
A friend and I, when we worked at a different TV station, we would watch MasterChef, and we had that sound so that every time something dramatic happened, we would just like, bong.
That
That's
sounds
amazing.
So it'd be like,
amazing.
I've overcooked my cream corn. Bong.
If only.
But yeah, no, the all the like mind palace sort of moments, the file rooms and the
Oh, but,
libraries,
and the
and
girl,
stuff.
like, without her eyes,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's going to be fucking me up at night for months.
which at first I thought was just part of like weird imagery for weird imagery
No,
sake,
it's a
and then
reference.
later, well, and it made story sense where she's like, oh, I changed things around. She made her hair different. She like
She had
covered her
purple hair.
eyes, stuff, so that they couldn't see who she actually was. I was like,
I didn't even make that connection.
she
till
gave
you just
herself a
said it.
disguise
Yeah.
so they couldn't just be like, let's flip
What is the
through some
creepiest fucking
pictures.
thing she could have done.
Let's look on MySpace.
Side
Kids still
note,
use MySpace?
the prop designer for that room is a big fan of Ruby, apparently.
Yeah, that's the reference. That's what she made herself look like.
Yeah.
Is one of the characters in Ruby from
Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is.
I
Rooster
saw the
Teeth.
character name. but-
Seth Green's. No, not Seth
Not Seth
Green's.
Green.
Sorry, it's Red versus Blue.
Red versus Blue. Rooster Teeth is all right, we'll tell you
I
about
was,
it
I
later.
was
Okay, well,
confusing
Don't
it
worry about it.
momentarily
The internet
with
knows what
Robot
Rooster
Chicken.
Teeth is.
This is what I was
Yeah.
momentarily confusing it with Robot Chicken. We'll get to that.
I do like Robot Chicken.
I do want to say though,
Not unrelated.
the thing that struck me during that scene though is when Rose is like, "Oh, you know, my mind is like a cathedral."
Yeah.
Cathedral, I think she said. And they're going through like file boxes, and it just made me think of that scene
Yeah,
in
that's all-
SpongeBob where like he compartmentalized his mind into files, and then like he's trying to find something that's on fire, and a bunch of SpongeBob's in his own head, or like going around crazy trying to find the file.
okay, yeah.
It's the only thing.
See,
I,
I just thought of like Sherlock because he has his like
Oh,
mind palace
right.
where he keeps all his information, and there was an episode where the antagonist had like files on everyone. It was like that, and he would go and find files.
I loved the car scene where she finally gets captured,
Yeah.
and then Ewan McGregor, Danny decides
Like,
to occupy
projects
her.
into
Oh,
her.
Yeah.
so good.
And he goes, "You seem like the type of guy that wouldn't wear a seatbelt."
It's arrogance.
Yes.
It's arrogance.
It's like
I
when
love
you're
that.
when you're semi-immortal,
Yeah.
why would you wear a seatbelt?
There were several times in the movie where I'm sure you heard me because you were sitting like 3 rows behind me, where I was like, "Oh yeah!"
We did not go to see this movie together. We just ended up in the same theater at the same time.
And this isn't a small town.
No,
There are
it's
lots
not.
of
We
theaters,
just-
lots of showings.
Like, wait, which showing are you in?
We're
right now?
texting, and you're talking about being at the theater. I'm like,
Yeah.
where are you? Tell me where you are. I'm like, what showing?
I'm like,
Well, that happened to us too.
Yeah.
Well, you were the show
But I went to
ahead
the
of us.
wrong one. Yeah,
It-
yeah.
I was like, oh, there's Jason's car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I did say, because we did talk momentarily after the movie as to not
Yeah.
Not to
not to
spoil
spoil
the-
everything. I felt like this like Stephen King wrote this story after seeing Monsters Inc.
Okay. Elaborate on that thought.
Stealing screens.
Stealing, like they get powered from screams from
Screams,
children.
okay.
They keep them in canisters.
All right, you're not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
right. I'm
mean-
seeing the parallels.
There are two things that
Did they
bother
go
me
to a
with this.
university to learn this before?
That's
did
the
not.
next. That's the third
That's-
stage.
That's the.
Knott's University.
There are two things that bothered me in this, and one of them was the canisters, because every time they popped up, I was like,
Especially because
You
it
can't see
seemed like
thermos.
"Do you get
they've
that
had-
at Bed Bath and Beyond?"
Well, they've had the canisters at least since like the 70s or whatever when
Right.
they had
No,
they captured
Well, do
Violet.
they
But
have,
much
like-
before that. So it's like, what weird space technology did they steal that from?
I think they just had like this special like superhero machinist somewhere, the same guy who makes like Superman's costume. And,
He's like, I
Batman's
need a
too.
way.
So we
Yeah,
got
that's
some
the same
thermoses.
universe at this point.
They started using like original thermoses were just real thermoses, but it was like leaking out slowly. Like, I can't get a
But this
good
one
seal.
goes as the what do they call it?
The steam.
The
the
steam.
steam comes out.
God, that's a gross name for it.
The steam, the shining
At
magic.
least they didn't call it the moisture.
Ugh.
We're gonna breathe your moisture.
Doesn't even make sense.
We're going after that
That's the-
girl
that's
because
the name
she's
of
so
your sex
moist.
tape.
I will
they say
say
in
the
Brooklyn
most
Nine-Nine.
Stephen King aspect of this movie for me is there's a hard set. There is good and there is evil in the world.
Yeah, it's always good
There's-
versus evil.
There's good versus evil, and they
But
don't.
one of the great things about this one though is that Danny is in the middle. Like I didn't.
not a little bit at the beginning. He's like stealing the money from that
Okay,
chick
so
and stuff.
I didn't realize this until I thought about it later. That girl OD'd and was
Yeah.
dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he left
Yeah.
that girl to also die.
You did not
Yeah.
get that
Baby.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on it till I was thinking about it later.
Did
I
you
was
not
like,
realize that was the girl in
No,
the bed with
I
him?
didn't.
As a
And her
baby?
child?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it later. I was like, who is that white? And I was like,
No.
Oh, fuck.
Immediately when
He's
you
a
woke
bad
up.
guy.
Yeah. Immediately when you woke up and there was vomit on the bed, I was like, she OD'd.
I don't think he knew she OD'd,
No, he
though.
didn't. I did.
Oh,
though.
yeah, we definitely did. I've seen Breaking Bad. I know
Yeah,
what it looks
I was
like.
like,
to OD.
she's dead. And then when he was sitting there, he's like, I don't know what to do with this baby. She'll wake up. I was like, that's bad. That's
During-
not a good
They
idea.
haven't found us yet.
Yeah,
They
that
haven't-
was the most horrific moment in that movie
was
to me
disturbing.
until we got to Jacob Tremblay, and then I was
Yeah.
like, never mind.
Maybe I just see too many movies.
I think you do
Yeah.
because this movie was legitimately terrifying. I think.
With Ewan McGregor in that opening sequence of him leaving the girl OD, I was thinking this is Train Spotting and Obi-Wan Kenobi all in one
all
movie.
at once.
Over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
So you had mentioned earlier, Elena, that you felt somewhere in the second act this shifts from kind of a horror, dark fantasy to revenge, and I think I know where that was. Did it take place in the woods
It absolutely did.
with maybe some deer hunting rifles?
I mean, the moment there's like, you still got those rifles? You know they're.
But did you
gonna
like
gun
the
them down.
scene?
Oh, I loved the scene. Oh, I loved it because, like I said, I was so sickened by what happened to the baseball boy that the moment they started getting good. Here's my thing. It made me upset watching what happened to, I think his name's Bradley in the movie.
Number 19.
Lucky number 19. But that, I understand why they had to do it because when we got to the shooting scene, I was like,
Kill those fuckers.
kill all of them. All of those worst people
Was
ever.
I the only one that was like, they're not suffering enough?
It looks like their death kind of sucks.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it only lasted like 15 seconds.
That's
that little
true.
boy was like gutted for
For a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
That cute little girl.
But
at
I
the
mean,
The little girl at the
but
beginning's
Rose
pretty
is the one who
terrifying.
did all of the like gutting. They
That's
kind
true.
of stood,
Yeah.
and her death was way worse than being gunned down.
You think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah. I don't think she enjoyed it.
Well, let's talk about the Overlook.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of knew throughout the movie, as soon as they started introducing the boxes that Danny puts, which I fucking
Yes.
love.
Yeah, it was good.
But soon as like he starts talking about like, oh, it's gonna end with him opening the boxes.
Yep.
The scene that tipped me off to was when the girl accidentally peeks into his mind, and you
Yeah.
see he's got dozens
Yep.
of these boxes. I was like, oh, he's just been putting them away, and that's coming back around at the end, and I am absolutely like
I
over the
mentioned
moon.
earlier,
It did.
there was a couple moments where I audibly out loud went, "Oh yeah," that was one of them because I was like, "This is gonna get good." And then like at that point I knew they're fucking going to the Overlook Hotel, and I couldn't be more excited when it happened. And they handled the Overlook Hotel so perfectly. Like,
yeah. So when Danny's walking around the hallways and the lights are like starting to buzz and they get that like crackly
He's warming it back
electricity,
up.
and I was like, oh, it's literally like it referenced back to the beginning when he's like, oh, you went in there and you were like a battery charging the
Right.
place. And I was just like, oh, it's his presence that feeds the energy of the Overlook, and I
it's hard to overstate
Loved all of that bit.
like just how on the money Mike Flanagan was at capturing the essence of The Shining. The photography and just the emotional feel. Like, this movie has a lot of different pacing. And The Shining, when they go to the Overlook or they go to those moments back in 1980, he nails it perfectly. And like, God, the last scene, that end was so fucking awesome. I love it so much. Seriously, I can't wait to see it again.
You guys don't know much about the book. I do.
Never
know,
read it.
I do know
Zero.
a lot about the book.
I don't know how to read.
I knew that. That's why we do this all through video.
Yeah.
No script. But I felt like the only way Stephen King would allow this movie to be made is if they used the proper ending from
with
the original Shining.
Overlook
Because
burning
in
down.
The Shining, the novel, the boiler explodes and destroys the Overlook Hotel.
Right.
They do go back to the land in Dr. Sleep in the book, where there is a campsite on top
Right.
of where the Overlook once
I mean,
stood.
what I keep hearing in
It's
reviews
like the
is this
reverse of
marries
Poltergeist.
The Shining really well with the Shining the book.
Yes.
And Doctor Sleep. Like,
Yeah.
it somehow finds a very happy medium path. As someone who's never read either of the books, just seen the Kubrick movie, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it was really good. Like, I think I enjoy this more than if Kubrick was reanimated by Dr. Frankenstein, brought back to direct Dr. Sleep. I think I enjoy this more than if Kubrick would have directed it.
Well, a fun little thing from the book from Dr. Sleep is that Danny is her half uncle in the book.
Oh.
So
neat.
you know how
Oh, yeah.
spoiler alert for the books. I don't know if that matters, but so you know
The movie,
how
she keeps referring to him as Uncle Dan.
Uncle Dan,
Yeah.
yes.
And like kind of one of those like, oh, not real uncle, but we have this connection
so
through
in
the
the
Shining.
book,
The
so
book,
in the book, you know how in the movie, Abra's mother is like, you know, I'm gonna go see. I think I'll calls her
Momo. Oh, yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, alluding to her being sick. In Dr. Sleep, the book, she is sick. And it turns out that she had a relationship with Jack Torrance, and Abra's mom is Jack Torrance's
So
daughter.
they're like half brother.
So half brother, half sister.
situation there, half uncle.
So he actually is her
I think is
uncle.
a half uncle.
I mean, and that's why I called it a half uncle.
With Stephen King stuff, it just gets kind of weird. I want to talk about the scene at the bar in the ballroom at the end of the movie at the
Yep.
Overlook with Jack Torrance talking to his son, Danny Torrance.
Earlier, you had mentioned that you didn't like that they didn't get Jack Nicholson
Yeah,
for
that's
that
the
scene.
only one that bothered me.
Really?
I
Oh,
kinda-
of the recast.
Of
the
the
recast.
recast, yeah.
For me, that scene kind of still worked because I took it as the hotel still had its original bartender, but the presence of Danny kind of made like a mesh of the two because he
Yeah.
wanted to kind of go still confront his father, which he never really got to have that moment. And the hotel kept going, no, I think you're confused. I'm not your father. I'm someone, I'm
Yeah.
Lloyd. I've always been here or whatever.
Yeah.
So I took that as just Danny's presence mushed it with
Yeah.
Lloyd the bartender.
But that conversation of, oh, you must have me mistaken, mirrors also the scene in the bathroom in the original Shining when he's like, oh, Jack Nicholson says, oh, you're the one that killed your family. You hacked him up and stacked him
Yeah.
like firewood. He goes,
No, I didn't.
no, sir. You must have me mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is so creepy. And then they mirror that perfectly, while at the same time also mirroring the bar scene from the original Shining. It's
a lot of layers.
so many
Good
layers,
scene.
and just like this movie shouldn't work. Like this should have fallen flat
Well,
on
this
its
movie
face.
had an uphill battle the whole way.
Like,
I mean,
there's- When I saw the trailer for it a few months ago, I'm like, this is gonna suck.
Yep.
No, why? Why the fuck would you do this? This is stupid. This is a bad idea. I don't want to see it.
I thought the movie was going to be very heavy-handed with its references to the
Oh,
first
right.
one. It was going to be just a lot of fan service to be like, we have to go back to the Overlook for a reason, and then it'd just
Yeah.
be the first like, hey, this happened in the first one. Hey, this happened in the first one. Hey, this happened.
But it was
like,
also organic.
and it worked really well in this one. They like stray away from even like mentioning or referencing the Overlook until the end, where he's like, there's this place, it feeds on people like us.
Right, but they handle it so well that you're he lays the Easter eggs, he lays the trail so that you're going like, they need to go to the Overlook. He has to take them there, and so you're rooting. And so the time he finally brings it up, you're like, fuck yeah, it's about
Yeah.
time they're going there. Whereas I think with any other director, almost any other director, like he would have gotten there way too early, and like it would have just felt so contrived. Whereas here, you're ahead of the characters, you're ahead of the writing.
All except for one scene, which is the blood coming out of the elevator. It
served no
nothing.
purpose.
It served no purpose. It
Interesting
added
thing.
nothing to that. I just didn't see the point.
I
in
kind
it.
of liked it for a number of reasons because she's going through the hotel and first she's kind of Rose the Hat, right? She's going through a hotel and she starts to see this as a special place and she's starting to like it and she sees the blood. What I loved is that's the only shot from The Shining that they reused.
No, it's not.
It's not. I read that it was. What was it?
The night scene where they're going over
sorry.
that.
Yes,
That's also reused, and then there's a third one I don't remember. But it was
They were like,
the only one at the Overlook, though, right? Everything else was recreated.
I don't know.
And the cool thing is, I have to look this up. I might be wrong. but that's not the same camera angle they used from The Shining. When Kubrick shot The Shining, he shot it from like 5 or 6 different angles.
He reused one?
5 or 6 different angles at several different frame rates because they weren't sure what was going to work. And I think they did it at close to full size, the set. I don't know. But you'll notice that in the movie, it's a low center shot, right? And it's frightening because the water.
It's
this one
barreling
is up
down on
and
you,
to
yeah.
the right.
Blood.
And I love that they used it because it.
I liked that happens, and it cuts back to Rose the Hat, and she's
smiling.
unfazed by it.
No, and she just goes. Oh, that's
She's
cool.
like, "That's happening," and then continues on her way.
I was almost worried that it was going to make her stronger. That the Overlook was not going to like he was like, if it's bad for us, it has to be bad for her. I'm like, well, she's kind of the antithesis of you, so my
She could feed
train
off
thought
of
would
the
be
energy.
like feeding off of it. Like it would make her more powerful, but it didn't have that. So
one thing about the Rose the Hat and her crew, that the knots,
The knot, yeah,
true not.
true knot,
with the creepy grandpa.
right? So
Played the Addams Family. He's
The butler, yeah.
Lurch, yeah.
So sometimes in movies they over-explain like origins of whatever.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't do that with them, but I also wanted a little more of like, who are these guys?
I got
But
just enough
Yeah,
with
I agree.
I was teetering. I just
Grandpa
I'm gonna get more.
Finch,
Yeah, when
like
he's
with his death,
dying.
and she's like, "No, you you
cycling.
took the gladiators, through
saw
Rome,
empires
and you
rise
saw
and
empires."
fall.
Like he's been living for centuries
Right.
and centuries.
But they don't spoon feed it to you. You kind of get it.
Yeah, and
know.
and I grasped the connection between Rose the Hat and him was he was the one that like indoctrinated her into
probably,
this
yeah.
immortal group, and like they've probably seen other members of the group come and go, but she kind of took over when he became too old to kind of run it. That was the backstory I built in my head.
Absolutely.
Just
the only
that
thing
scene.
about the writing that bothered me was at the end. Danny dies at the Overlook. He
The way Jack dies in the book.
blows up or burns alive or some horrific thing, and he's talking to, I forget the little girl's name.
Abra.
Abra.
Like
yes.
abracadabra.
As an abracadabra, I rolled my eyes at that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is. So
because she's magic.
he's in her room, and this is where I rolled my eyes, and I hated it. Is he goes, "Shine on, shine on." I was like, I love the rest of the movie though, because it was so corny. It was so bad. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you turned around and said, "Yeah, Jason," but it was in the book.
I don't know that. I don't think. No, well, actually, in the book, he doesn't die. So
Oh.
he does not die in the book.
What does he tell her to shine on?
Not to my recollection.
It
no.
sounds like a really bad
He did
lyric
go to
from
her
the 90s.
15th
It sounds
birthday
like an
party, though.
Aerosmith lyric.
Okay,
That's how it ends in the book. He
Does
goes to
it?
her 15th birthday party.
interesting.
Is it just me, or like is Ewan McGregor even cooler after doing this movie?
I don't know. He's pretty cool. Just
Yeah.
Fucking cool.
I was sad that he got rid of his beard when he was like, "I'm sober now, beard gone." I was like,
Oh, yeah.
beard was still awesome. You should have kept the beard.
Sick beard.
Yeah.
And R.I.P. Billy, by the way. None of us have mentioned Billy.
Oh my god.
R.I.P. Billy.
Yeah. Sad times. He was a good guy. Good guy, Billy.
He was like the nicest guy in the world.
But I think there needed to be a
a
low
rough
point.
night.
Like the
Yeah.
heroes were like
Yeah.
on a roll.
that sucks.
Oh, for sure. But like, think about it. This guy is just living his life, and then at like 2 o'clock, or I think it's 4
4 in the
a.m. in the
morning
morning,
is-
he's like, "Hey, I gotta tell you a story about how my dad died, and I have telekinetic and supernatural
Yeah.
abilities.
We're gonna go dig up
and we're
a
gonna
little
go
kid's grave.
dig up
Dig up
this
a kid.
tortured, murdered
Also-
kid.
That's
Also,
No, go
we're
on.
gonna go murder a bunch of people, and then you're gonna kill yourself. That's
Yeah.
a bad
He's like, well, I used
16
to
hours.
hunt deer.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But snake bite, Andy.
Snake bite. Yeah.
Snake bite Andy,
Yeah.
who went from like being kind of like justice for
Yeah.
like young girls being preyed on by men to literally killing young children.
Fun fact: she pops up in one of my other favorite horror movies of recent.
Oh.
She was in The Babysitter.
Yeah.
She
Really?
plays. You've seen The Babysitter, right?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Don't do
it's
horror
worth the watch.
movies.
It's fun. It's
We've talked about this.
yeah, it's a comedy. There is blood. Like a dude gets like like stabbed here, but it's like Tucker and Dale in a lot of ways.
I do like Tucker
and it does subvert your expectations. It's very funny. It's bloody, but it's not like here where kids literally.
It's cartoon blood versus.
Yeah,
It's
Wild
worth
E.
the
Coyote.
Yeah. It's worth your
love
it's worth
Tucker.
your time.
And it's on
Tucker and
Netflix,
Dale.
so you can see it for free in your pajamas while like. eating.
Well,
I use
you
my
can see it
parents'
for the
Netflix
price. Oh,
account.
okay, I was gonna say you can see it for the price of a Netflix subscription.
Thanks, Mom. That's sweet,
so-
sweet Netflix login.
Normally, this is the point in the show where we go, "Well, Travis, what do you think about this fancy rare bourbon we got?
My Jack and Daniels feels very.
How's your Jack and Coke, you guys?
It was great. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think I got my $30 worth. It's hard to this is an absurd
Yeah, it's
like-
definitely the largest bottle we've gotten for the least amount of money.
this is
However,
cartoonishly big.
you have to make the point that since we are in California, this is cheaper here. than It
Okay.
will be in other places. Yeah.
Why?
So from North Carolina, due to the way that we buy our alcohol, it's government regulated.
Okay.
So you don't buy it at like a grocery store. You buy it at an ABC store.
Wait, and you guys still have like dry counties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
same
so
with like
weird.
Utah, same with Toronto.
Yeah.
Has
So
all their
usually-
booze,
And Kentucky, the home of bourbon, has more dry counties than wet.
Go figure.
So this costs you how much here?
This cost me. Okay, not that I'm plugging Total Wine. I got this at Total Wine. The 750 milliliter, I think, was $18.99.
Okay.
The 1 liter was $27.99.
Okay.
At the time I bought this, price is not guaranteed.
Due to inflation.
Someone's writing this down. They're like, God damn it.
So in Northern California, the 1 liter, which is a stupid amount of Jack Daniels, I might add, was $27.99. Yet the 1.75 liter was $28.99. For
A
$1
quarter of a
more,
liter shy of double the amount.
you get 75% more for $1. And I was like, yes, please.
Okay, so $28.99 for that. In
Almost
North
a
Carolina,
penny a
at
liter.
least minimum $59.99.
What?
Okay.
At least, yeah.
Welcome to California, the greatest state in the union.
The first time I went to a Target and there was liquor in the store, I was like, "What is this legal? What's happening?"
All right, so what are we watching next week? We settled on
Ford
v
versus
Ferrari. It
Ferrari.
was between that and Charlie's Angels.
But first, who should see this movie?
Who should? Oh, good point. Who
Yeah.
should this movie? I think everyone, unless you don't like kids dying.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Really?
Sure,
Should small kids see
child.
this movie?
Really, and well, they probably don't like seeing young children die
When I
either.
was a kid, I wanted to watch people die.
And I gotta go. Jesus Christ.
The door's locked, Elena.
Well, that got uncomfortably quiet.
Yeah.
So-
So who should see this movie? Should Stanley Kubrick fans or Stephen King fans see this movie?
I think definitely Stephen King fans. It feels like a very much a Stephen King story.
It feels.
If you're a very die-hard Stanley Kubrick fan, it may not live up to your high plateau of like film
It's
and
pretty
cinematography.
fucking close.
It's
though.
very good. I think if you are a movie fan, you'll enjoy this.
Yes.
If you enjoy films or filmmaking, there is something in this for you. It's kind of a
If
must-see.
you're one of those people that are like, I don't see movies, I only watch the cinema and the finest of
Then
films,
fuck you.
then
Go away.
you're not
Just-
watching this channel anyway. So
So we're just talking to
fine.
Martin Scorsese at this
yes,
point.
Basically-
Martin Scorsese probably won't care for this movie.
You know what sucks? I'm really excited about The Irishman.
Me too.
He's kind of douchey, like Spielberg. He's kind of douchey about this stuff.
You still go see his stuff.
I'll still
Oh
pay money to
man,
go see.
Spielberg really messed up Ready Player One, so I don't even really care.
Didn't read that
You're
book
not
either.
wrong. I did read that book. That's a fun read.
Is
you would
it?
like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we'll convert it to pictures for you. It's a
We'll
callback
just-
to your
we'll
you can't
act
read.
it out.
No, I
joke,
got that.
yeah.
I was waiting for you to explain the pictures.
We're just gonna act it out. We're gonna shadow puppet.
Shadow puppet.
Can we do real puppets? Like maybe sock puppets?
Oh fuck yeah, we can do that. Wait, you got some brown paper
know
bags?
what?
Because we'll make them right
That's
the
our
fuck
next
now.
channel.
Yes.
We're Sweden movies with
Sweden
puppets.
Puppet Movie Club.
For people who don't, for people who don't watch too many movies, that's a reference to an old Jack Black movie called
Be Kind, Rewind.
Yeah.
Jack Black and Most Death?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
It's a fun movie.
Fun movie.
I kind of want to Swede movies. I've always wanted to. And Sweding with puppets So what'd you call it? Whiskey Puppet Channel?
He called it
Whiskey-
Puppy Movie Club.
Puppet Movie
Puppy-
Club. Puppy Movie Club's a separate channel we have.
If we want to get a lot more views,
Goddamn Jack
Puppet
Daniels.
Movie Club is how we do it.
More likes with puppies in our
Puppy Movie Club.
All right, you've been watching Whiskey Movie Club. This has been our
Review of Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep, not to be confused with Doctor Strange or Doctor Strange Love or any
No.
other Doctor movies.
Or any other Doctor.
Or the
film.
Doctor
Doc
on
Hollywood.
ABC. Doc Hollywood.
The Good Doctor?
Today
ABC?
was the anniversary of Doc Holliday's death
I did not
in
know that.
Colorado.
What you have
Now we
witnessed
should
is
all
what we
go
call in
watch
industry
Tombstone.
A train wreck.
This is how most of our episodes
It
end.
just devolves into drunken madness. Travis, if you want to follow your drunken madness, where can they find you?
At Captain Frucci.
Where though?
Twitter, Instagram. You can hunt me down just by searching Travis Frucci. I think I'm the only one.
It's the internet.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't say hunt you down.
Oh, well.
Jason, where can
Someone's
people find
getting
you?
JD Knight Films and all the standard social media platforms.
Don't hunt you.
Don't hunt me.
Don't,
You
yeah,
can find me.
don't hunt me.
Oh, is it my turn? You didn't.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. Should I be selfish? Hold on, Elena. You can find me at Real Jason Miller. Feel free to hit subscribe at Whiskey Movie Club. We post all sorts of fun and cool stuff. And Elena, I'm saving the best for last. Where can people find you?
At Elena Jean, ALANEA.
Doesn't matter.
No one knows how to spell my name, including Jason.
It doesn't matter because the links
Links,
are
description.
below. Please comment.
A little
say something.
lower
Say
third.
hi. Say how stupid we are, or if we.
Let us know if we should be watching Charlie's Angels. We're going to watch Ford versus Ferrari. But what are you excited about
I actually
coming up this
think.
weekend?
Please make an argument for why, and if it's good enough, we will see. By we, I mean Travis will go see.
Sure, I see
Charlie's
everything
Angels.
anyway.
Yes, because we don't have
And then
lives.
he's gonna act it out for us using puppets.
Using
Puppets.
puppets.
You know what? I would watch that channel.
I don't have enough hands to do all three puppets.
All right, this has been Whiskey Movie Club. We're gonna go drink a whole lot of Jack Daniels.